The desert heat shimmered across the compound as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her tactical vest one final time. 3 years of deployment in the Middle Eastern theater had taught her that equipment checks could mean the difference between coming home and becoming a statistic. The morning briefing had been routine until Colonel Martinez mentioned the new arrival, a female sniper being transferred from a classified unit with an unprecedented record. Maria had seen plenty of soldiers come and go through Forward Operating Base Phoenix. But something about this transfer felt different. The paperwork was minimal, almost suspiciously so, and the woman's previous unit designation was completely redacted. All they knew was her rank, Sergeant First Class, and that she specialized in long-range precision shooting. The Humvee convoy rolled through the main gate just after noon, kicking up clouds of sand that caught the harsh sunlight. Maria watched from the operations tent as 3 vehicles approached the motor pool. The lead vehicle contained the usual complement of new arrivals, but the second Humvee held only 2 passengers, a driver and a woman in desert camouflage, whose posture suggested someone accustomed to staying alert even during transport. Corporal Jake Williams jogged over to Maria, sweat already beading on his forehead. Despite the relatively early hour, Jake was responsible for weapons maintenance and had been specifically instructed to prepare a Barrett M82 rifle for the incoming sniper. The massive 50 caliber weapon was a beast of engineering, capable of engaging targets at extreme distances with devastating effectiveness. Sergeant Santos, "You need to see this," Jake said, his voice carrying an unusual tension. He held up a maintenance tag that had been attached to the rifle case. The weapon came with specific modifications, and this serial number doesn't match anything in our database. Maria took the tag and examined it closely. The numbers were clearly military standard, but there was something else. A small engraved marking that read 305 CE in precise lettering. She had never seen anything like it on standard military equipment, and the abbreviation meant nothing to her. The convoy had reached the designated parking area, and Maria could see the passengers beginning to disembark. The female sniper moved with the fluid efficiency of someone who had spent considerable time in combat zones. Her gear was well maintained but showed the wear patterns of extensive field use. Most notably, she carried herself with the quiet confidence that marked truly experienced soldiers. As the new arrival approached the processing station, Maria noticed other details that set her apart from typical transfers. Her uniform bore no unit patches except for basic identifiers, and her equipment loadout was minimalist, but obviously customized for specific purposes. The woman's eyes constantly scanned the environment, a habit that spoke of someone who had learned to trust nothing to chance. Jake had returned to the weapons depot to complete the rifle preparation, but Maria could see he was struggling with something. The Barrett M82 was not functioning properly, and attempts to clear what appeared to be a feeding mechanism jam were proving unsuccessful. For a weapon that needed to perform flawlessly in combat situations, any malfunction was a serious concern. The processing paperwork took longer than usual, partly because of the extensive security clearances that needed verification, and partly because the woman answered questions with the absolute minimum of required information. She gave her name as Sergeant First Class Elena Vasquez and confirmed her specialty as precision marksmanship, but offered nothing beyond what was directly asked. Maria found herself curious about the story behind this transfer. Snipers with extensive combat experience were valuable assets, and the military rarely moved them without compelling reasons. The redacted unit information and minimal paperwork suggested either a highly classified background or perhaps circumstances that required discretion. The afternoon briefing would normally include introductions for new personnel, but Colonel Martinez had specifically requested that Sergeant Vasquez be assigned directly to Maria's squad without the usual orientation process. This departure from standard procedure added another layer of mystery to an already unusual situation. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting longer shadows across the compound, Maria realized that the arrival of this new sniper would likely change the dynamics of their unit in ways she could not yet anticipate. The woman's obvious competence was reassuring, but the secrecy surrounding her background created questions that might prove more significant than anyone initially realized. The next morning brought an urgent mission briefing that would test the new team dynamics sooner than anyone expected. Intelligence reports indicated enemy movement in a valley approximately 12 kilometers northeast of their position, and command needed eyes on the target area immediately. Maria's squad was selected for the reconnaissance mission, which meant Sergeant Vasquez would face her first assignment with the unit under potentially dangerous circumstances. The weapons depot buzzed with activity as soldiers prepared their equipment for the patrol. Jake Williams had spent most of the previous evening working on the Barrett M82, but the feeding mechanism continued to malfunction despite his best efforts. The rifle would chamber single rounds manually but refused to cycle properly during semi-automatic operation. Elena Vasquez examined the weapon with the methodical approach of someone who understood the intimate details of precision firearms. She field-stripped the rifle completely, laying out components in an organized pattern that impressed even Jake with its systematic efficiency. Her movement suggested familiarity with this specific weapon model that went far beyond standard military training. "The gas system is properly adjusted," she said quietly, running her fingers along the barrel extension. "But something feels wrong with the bolt timing." Her voice carried a slight accent that Maria could not immediately place, and she spoke with the economy of words typical among snipers who spent long periods maintaining radio silence. While Elena worked on the rifle, Maria reviewed the mission parameters with the rest of the squad. They would establish an observation post on a ridgeline that offered commanding views of the suspected enemy route, gather intelligence on movement patterns and equipment, and report findings back to headquarters. The mission duration was estimated at 18 hours, requiring them to maintain position through the night. Private First Class Tommy Chen, the squad's designated marksman, watched Elena's weapon maintenance with obvious interest. Tommy was skilled with his M24 rifle system, but the Barrett M82 represented a significant step up in both capability and complexity. The 50 caliber rounds could engage targets at distances that pushed the boundaries of what most soldiers considered possible. "Sergeant, have you worked with the M82 before?" Tommy asked, genuinely curious about her experience level. Elena looked up from her work, meeting his gaze briefly before returning attention to the weapon. "Yes," she replied simply, offering no additional details about when, where, or under what circumstances she had gained that experience. The mechanical issue proved more stubborn than initially anticipated. Elena had identified the problem as related to bolt timing, but correcting it required adjustments that went beyond standard field maintenance procedures. She requested tools that were not typically part of unit equipment, suggesting modifications that Jake had never seen implemented on military weapons. "This rifle has been extensively modified," Elena explained to Maria as she worked. "The trigger group has been customized, the barrel has been hand-lapped, and the stock has been adjusted for a specific shooting position. These modifications improve accuracy significantly, but require precise maintenance procedures." Maria began to understand that this was not simply a standard military weapon assigned to a new user. The rifle had been specifically configured for Elena's use, which implied a level of specialization that went far beyond normal sniper training. The mysterious 305 CE marking was starting to seem more significant than a simple inventory number. By mid-morning, Elena had managed to partially correct the feeding issue, though she expressed concerns about the weapon's reliability under field conditions. The rifle would function adequately for single-shot precision work, but rapid follow-up shots remained problematic. For most snipers, this limitation would not pose serious difficulties, but Elena's reaction suggested she was accustomed to engagement scenarios that required faster shot sequences. The squad prepared to depart for their observation mission with the understanding that their sniper support would be operating with compromised equipment. Maria made the decision to proceed with the patrol while monitoring the situation carefully. They could not afford to delay the mission, but she was acutely aware that equipment failures in combat situations could have serious consequences. As they loaded into the transport vehicles, Maria noticed Elena performing final equipment checks with particular attention to backup systems. She carried additional optics, an alternate rifle system, and emergency ammunition loads that exceeded standard requirements. Her preparation suggested someone who had learned through experience that redundancy could be the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. The convoy departed forward operating base, Phoenix, just after noon, heading into terrain that would test both their tactical skills and the reliability of their equipment. Maria could not shake the feeling that this mission would reveal more about their mysterious new sniper than routine operations might otherwise demonstrate. The observation post overlooked a natural corridor between two rocky hills that intelligence analysts believed enemy forces were using for supply movements. Maria's squad had reached their position by late afternoon, establishing concealed positions that provided excellent fields of view while minimizing their own exposure to detection. The location was tactically sound, but it also placed them approximately 800 meters from the nearest cover if they needed to withdraw quickly. Elena had selected a shooting position on the eastern edge of their perimeter, where a natural rock formation provided both concealment and a stable platform for long-range shooting. She arranged her equipment with meticulous care, creating a workspace that would allow rapid target engagement if the situation required it. The modified Barrett M82 was positioned for optimal fields of fire. Despite its mechanical issues, the first few hours passed quietly, with squad members rotating observation duties while maintaining radio contact with headquarters. Maria used the time to study Elena's professional habits, noting details that suggested extensive combat experience. The woman moved with minimal noise, maintained excellent camouflage discipline, and demonstrated situational awareness that exceeded what most soldiers developed during standard deployments. As evening approached, movement was detected in the valley below. Through binoculars, Maria could identify a small group of individuals moving along what appeared to be an established trail. The distance made positive identification difficult, but their movement patterns and equipment suggested they were not local civilians going about routine business. Elena had been monitoring the same area through her rifle scope, using the enhanced magnification to gather more detailed information about the contacts. "I count 6 individuals," she reported quietly over the radio. "They're carrying weapons and moving in tactical formation. Estimated range is 1,400 meters. The distance was well beyond the effective range of standard infantry weapons, but it fell within the Barrett M82's engagement envelope." Maria realized that if these contacts proved to be enemy forces, Elena might be their only means of engagement from their current position. The mechanical issues with the rifle suddenly became much more significant. "Can you maintain positive identification at that range?" Maria asked, recognizing that accurate target identification was crucial before any engagement decision could be made. Elena adjusted her scope settings and observed the targets for several minutes before responding. "Affirmative. They're carrying AK pattern rifles and equipment consistent with known enemy forces in this area. One individual appears to be carrying communications equipment." The communications equipment detail was particularly significant, as enemy radio operators were high-value targets that could provide valuable intelligence if captured or neutralized. Maria relayed the information to headquarters while considering their tactical options. They were positioned for observation rather than engagement, but circumstances might require them to transition roles. Quickly, headquarters responded with instructions to maintain observation and prepare for possible interdiction if the enemy force continued toward a nearby coalition supply route. This meant Elena needed to be ready for precision engagement on very short notice. Despite the rifle's mechanical problems, Sergeant Vasquez, "What's your assessment of weapon reliability for precision shots?" Maria asked, needing to understand their capabilities accurately. Elena chambered around manually and checked her sight alignment. "Single shots should be accurate and reliable. The timing issue will prevent rapid follow-up shots, but first-round hits should not be affected." Her voice carried the confidence of someone who understood her equipment limitations precisely. The enemy group continued moving through the valley, following a route that would bring them within range of coalition positions by the following morning. Intelligence value alone made them worth tracking, but their potential threat to friendly forces meant engagement might become necessary. As darkness settled over the observation post, Elena began preparing for night operations. She attached thermal imaging equipment to her rifle system and adjusted her position to account for changing environmental conditions. Her movements were practiced and efficient, suggesting this was far from her first nighttime precision shooting situation. Tommy Chen had been watching Elena's preparations with growing respect for her professional competence. "Sergeant, that thermal setup looks like special operations equipment," he commented quietly. Elena glanced at him briefly before returning attention to her preparations. "It's effective for night target identification," she replied, neither confirming nor denying the observation. About equipment origins, Maria was beginning to understand that Elena's background involved experiences that standard military training did not typically provide. The specialized equipment, advanced techniques, and obvious familiarity with complex tactical situations suggested she had been involved in operations that required capabilities beyond conventional infantry training. The night would test not only Elena's shooting skills, but also the squad's ability to coordinate under pressure with a new team member, whose full capabilities remained largely unknown. The situation developed rapidly just after midnight, when the enemy group changed direction and began moving toward what intelligence had identified as a coalition patrol route. Maria received updated orders from headquarters. Her squad was authorized to engage if the enemy force posed an immediate threat to friendly units. The decision would ultimately rest with her, but Elena's precision capability would be the determining factor in mission success. Elena had been tracking the enemy movement through her thermal imaging system, maintaining continuous observation despite the challenging nighttime conditions. "They've stopped approximately 1,000 meters from our position," she reported. "Looks like they're establishing some kind of temporary position near the trail junction." The trail junction was strategically significant because it controlled access to several routes that coalition forces used for supply movements. If enemy forces established a permanent presence there, it could disrupt friendly operations throughout the region. Maria realized that this was exactly the type of situation that required immediate action rather than prolonged observation. "Headquarters confirms enemy forces are setting up what appears to be an ambush position," Maria relayed to her squad. "We're cleared to engage targets of opportunity that pose immediate threat to coalition operations." Elena adjusted her rifle position and began the precise calculations required for accurate long-range shooting in darkness. Environmental factors like wind speed, temperature, and humidity all affected bullet trajectory at extreme distances, and nighttime conditions made these calculations more challenging. She worked with the methodical precision of someone who had performed these calculations many times under similar circumstances. "Range to primary target is 970 meters, Elena reported. "Wind is minimal, approximately 2 miles per hour from the southeast. Temperature is stable. I have clear sight picture on what appears to be the team leader." Maria understood that once Elena fired the first shot, their position would be compromised and they would need to be prepared for immediate extraction. The enemy force would likely attempt to locate and engage their position, which meant timing and coordination would be critical for squad survival. Private Chen had positioned himself to provide security for Elena's shooting position, while also maintaining observation of potential escape routes. His role would be crucial if they needed to withdraw under pressure after the engagement. Tommy had proven himself capable during previous missions, but this situation would test his abilities under significantly more dangerous circumstances. "Target is moving into position near what looks like a communications setup," Elena observed. "This may be our best opportunity for maximum tactical impact." Maria made the decision that would define the mission outcome. "You're cleared to engage primary target when ready." Elena's breathing became controlled and rhythmic as she prepared for the shot. Long-range precision shooting required absolute steadiness and perfect timing, skills that she had obviously developed through extensive training and experience. The modified Barrett M82, despite its mechanical issues, remained capable of delivering accurate fire at the required distance. The rifle discharged with a sharp crack that echoed across the valley, followed immediately by Elena's assessment. "Target down. Clean hit center mass." The effect on the enemy position was immediate and dramatic. The remaining 5 individuals scrambled for cover while trying to determine the direction of incoming fire. Elena quickly chambered another round manually, compensating for the rifle's cycling problems while maintaining sight picture on secondary targets. "Second target acquired," she reported. Individual attempting to operate radio equipment. The second shot followed within 30 seconds, demonstrating Elena's ability to maintain accuracy despite equipment limitations. "Radio operator neutralized. Remaining personnel are seeking concealment but staying in the immediate area." Maria realized that Elena's shooting was having tactical effects beyond simple target elimination. The enemy force was effectively pinned in position and unable to execute their planned ambush operation. More importantly, the loss of their communications capability meant they could not coordinate with other enemy elements or call for reinforcement. Outstanding shooting, Maria acknowledged. Prepare for possible counterattack and be ready to displace on my signal. Elena maintained observation of the target area while manually reloading her rifle. The remaining enemy personnel were clearly disorganized and appeared to be attempting to evacuate the area, rather than mount an attack against the unknown sniper position. Their tactical effectiveness had been completely disrupted by the loss of their leadership and communications. Headquarters confirmed that nearby coalition units had been alerted to the situation and were moving to secure the area where the enemy ambush had been disrupted. Maria's squad had successfully prevented a potential attack on friendly forces while gathering valuable intelligence about enemy operations in the region. The extraction from the observation post went smoothly, with Maria's squad reaching forward operating base Phoenix before dawn without enemy contact. Elena had maintained rear security during their withdrawal, demonstrating the same professional competence that had marked her shooting performance. However, Maria noticed that Elena seemed unusually quiet during the return journey, as if the successful engagement had triggered memories or concerns that she preferred not to discuss. Back at the base, the mission debriefing revealed the full significance of their nighttime engagement. Intelligence analysis of the target area confirmed that the enemy force had been preparing an ambush position that would have threatened a scheduled supply convoy. Elena's precision shooting had not only eliminated immediate threats but had also prevented what could have been a devastating attack on coalition forces. Colonel Martinez personally conducted the debriefing, unusual attention for what might have appeared to be a routine observation mission. "Sergeant Vasquez, your shooting performance exceeded all expectations," he stated. 2 targets eliminated at nearly 1,000 meters under nighttime conditions represents exceptional marksmanship. Elena accepted the praise with minimal response, maintaining the same reserved demeanor that had characterized her interactions since arriving at the base. Maria was beginning to recognize this as a professional habit rather than personal unfriendliness, but she remained curious about the experiences that had shaped such behavior. The Barrett M82 was returned to the weapons depot for maintenance, where Jake Williams began a thorough inspection of the rifle's condition after field use. The weapon had performed adequately despite its mechanical issues, but Jake wanted to understand why such an obviously high-quality rifle was experiencing feeding problems. During his detailed examination, Jake discovered something that immediately caught his attention. Hidden beneath the rifle's serial number plate was additional engraving that had not been visible during routine inspection. The numbers 305 were clearly marked, but they were followed by additional text that was partially obscured by wear and accumulated debris. Jake cleaned the area carefully and discovered that the complete marking read 305 confirmed eliminations. The realization hit him like a physical blow. This was not simply a service record or inventory number. It was a kill count, and it represented a level of combat experience that few soldiers ever achieved. He stared at the engraving for several minutes, trying to process the implications of what he had discovered. 305 confirmed eliminations meant that Elena Vasquez was not simply an experienced sniper, but rather one of the most lethal precision shooters in military history. The number represented years of combat operations and a level of tactical effectiveness that placed her among the most elite warriors in any armed force. Jake realized that he needed to report this discovery, but he was uncertain about the appropriate channels. The information obviously carried security implications, and Elena's transfer orders had specifically indicated classified background details. He decided to approach Sergeant Santos first, recognizing that she would understand both the tactical significance and the proper procedures for handling sensitive information. Maria was in the communications center filing her mission report when Jake found her. His expression immediately indicated that something significant had occurred, and she stepped away from her paperwork to give him her full attention. "Sergeant Santos, you need to see what I found on the Barrett," Jake said quietly, glancing around to ensure their conversation would not be overheard. He showed her a photograph he had taken of the engraving, explaining how he had discovered the hidden marking during post-mission maintenance. Maria studied the image carefully, understanding immediately why Jake was concerned about the discovery. 305 confirmed eliminations represented a combat record that was virtually unprecedented in modern warfare. Even the most experienced snipers rarely achieved kill counts that exceeded double digits, and numbers in the hundreds suggested involvement in sustained combat operations over extended periods. Jake, this information stays between us until I can determine the proper reporting procedures, Maria instructed. Sergeant Vasquez's background is obviously classified for good reasons, and we need to respect that while ensuring appropriate personnel are informed. The discovery explained many of the details that had seemed unusual about Elena's transfer and assignment. Her minimal paperwork, redacted unit information, and specialized equipment all made sense in the context of someone with an extraordinary combat record who had been involved in highly classified operations. Maria realized that their squad had been assigned one of the most experienced and effective combat soldiers in the military, but that Elena's background created responsibilities and security considerations that went far beyond normal personnel management. The woman's reserved behavior and professional competence reflected experiences that few people could truly understand. Colonel Martinez called Maria into his office the following afternoon, and she immediately sensed that the meeting would address the discoveries about Elena's background. The colonel's expression was serious, but not hostile, suggesting that he was prepared to share information that had previously been withheld for security reasons. Sergeant Santos, I understand that questions have arisen about Sergeant Vasquez's background and experience level, the colonel began. I'm authorized to provide you with certain details that will help you understand her assignment to your squad. Maria listened carefully as Colonel Martinez explained that Elena Vasquez had been part of a special operations unit that conducted precision elimination missions in various combat theaters over a 6-year period. Her confirmed kill count of 305 enemies represented one of the highest totals achieved by any sniper in modern military history, earned through operations that remained classified at the highest levels. Her transfer to our unit was requested specifically because she needed assignment to a conventional military environment after completing her special operations commitment, the colonel continued. The psychological demands of sustained precision shooting operations require careful transition back to standard military duties. The explanation helped Maria understand Elena's reserved behavior and professional approach to military duties. Someone who had spent years conducting elimination missions under extreme pressure would naturally develop habits and perspectives that differed significantly from conventional soldiers, even experienced combat veterans. Her equipment, including the modified Barrett M82, represents tools that were specifically configured for her operational requirements, Colonel Martinez added. The rifle's performance issues result from wear accumulated during extensive field use under demanding conditions. Maria realized that Elena's integration into their squad represented more than simple personnel assignment. She was being given the opportunity to transition from highly specialized warfare back to the more conventional military operations, a process that required understanding and support from her new unit members. The colonel's briefing also included instructions about security protocols regarding Elena's background. While Maria and Jake now understood the significance of her combat record, that information was not to be shared with other squad members or discussed in routine military communications. Elena's privacy and security required that her special operations background remain carefully protected. Over the following days, Maria observed subtle changes in Elena's behavior as she adapted to her new assignment. The woman remained professionally competent and tactically skilled, but she gradually began participating more naturally in squad activities and informal conversations. The successful mission had apparently demonstrated to her that this unit could provide the professional environment she needed. Tommy Chen continued to show interest in learning from Elena's experience, and she began sharing technical knowledge about precision shooting that exceeded anything available through standard military training. Her willingness to mentor junior soldiers suggested that teaching might provide a positive outlet for her extensive tactical knowledge. Jake Williams worked with Elena to address the Barrett M82's mechanical issues, learning maintenance procedures that went far beyond standard military protocols. The rifle's problems were eventually resolved through adjustments that Elena had learned during her special operations assignments, restoring the weapon to full operational capability. The integration process was not without challenges, as Elena's standards for tactical preparation and operational security sometimes exceeded what conventional units typically maintained. However, Maria recognized that these elevated standards ultimately benefited the entire squad by improving their overall effectiveness and professional competence. Several weeks after Elena's arrival, Maria reflected on how the assignment had affected her unit's capabilities and dynamics. They had gained not only an exceptionally skilled sniper, but also a source of tactical knowledge that was helping all squad members improve their military skills. Elena's transition from special operations to conventional military service appeared to be progressing successfully. The mystery surrounding Elena's transfer had been resolved, but Maria understood that the woman's extraordinary combat experience would continue to influence their unit's operations in positive ways. 305 confirmed eliminations represented a level of military effectiveness that few soldiers ever achieved, and Elena's willingness to share that knowledge was making her squad more capable and professional. As Maria watched Elena conducting marksmanship training with Tommy Chen, she realized that successful military units often developed through exactly this type of knowledge transfer between experienced and junior soldiers. Elena Vasquez had found a new role that honored her exceptional service record while helping prepare the next generation of military professionals.